And I'm going to switch, hopefully. Yes. You didn't. I just, like you ever ask me about anything. Uh-oh, what happened? Wednesday, I know, right? I see a wheel. Uh-oh, what did I do? Well, there we go. Okay. Hopefully online, can somebody at least speak up and say they can see this?
Yes, I can see it.
Awesome. Okay. So I'll just jump right into it. Road trip. So, yeah, you didn't, it's, it is what it is. So basically, we had a music festival that we went to about 10 or so years ago, up in Eau Claire, Wisconsin. And so fortunately along the way, are the Chicago museums, which I haven't been to in decades. And the Adler's one of them. And then Yerkes Observatory happens to be on the way as well. And Yerkes has got a really interesting history. I'm going to kind of go into that a little bit, but it hasn't been open to the public. They are now changed hands as far as who owns it, what they're doing there, and they're now opening up to the public. And catching wind of that, I literally was every day checking to figure out, because it was this hinting that they would be opening it up during a time on our trip, and it fell right on it. And I literally was like, and I got in. So excited about it. So basically we drove to Chicago, toured the Adler Planetarium and the Field Museum. We only had one day. Ran from Chicago. And
pretty long trot.
It is. Well, we stayed the night just south of Chicago. And then we got to tour the museums. Then we left Chicago and stayed up near Yerkes, got to tour Yerkes, which I will talk about. Then went camping for a few days because the cities and stuff, it was kind of nice to go. Then we went to our 3-day music festival, which was more camping, and back to Chattanooga. So I'm going to focus on the Adler Planetarium and Yerkes. So Adler, nice Copernicus statue up here or whatever, but you'll kind of notice the dome in the middle. This thing was established in 1930. Very Art Deco, to say the least. Kind of reminds me of something here. And then you kind of notice the little modern parts off to the side there a little bit. Yeah, so it's gone through some significant changes, but a very historic place. And I'm going to focus on that one first. So Max Adler was just a local. He was part of the whole Sears Roebuck thing back in Chicago in the day. And he retired and wanted to focus on philanthropy. And I guess a buddy of his had been over in Germany where they just in the 1920s developed this new thing called a planetarium and started talking about it and goes, man, that's perfect. We should build one in Chicago. And so he did. And it was the very first one built in the Western Hemisphere at the time in 1930. So I actually found they were constructing it, which was kind of neat. And I want to thank Ralph. So if you're interested later, this is from 1933, I think. So it's a guide that he has for Adler at the time. So I've stolen quite a bit of things in here from that because they're great. It's really great. So thank you, Ralph. So I'm going to try to tie in some BAS history throughout this whole talk. Adler doesn't have a lot. However, in the 86th meeting in October of 1931, this is Clarence T. Jones's second meeting that he attended with the BAS. And he happened to mention that it says, Mr. Clarence Jones told an interesting way of the great planetarium he had just recently seen in Chicago. So he had he had, I guess, just gone and seen the Adler Planetarium before coming here, and it's probably one of the things that kept Planetarium in his mind, an observatory, being an amateur astronomer. I thought that was just really kind of neat. And one of the things that I want to tie in with this is a little bit is one of our things that have been doing is that, and afterwards, if you're interested, I will share these with you. We have up until 1950s, I think. I got to remember the date on this. We have our meeting minutes.
Wow.
And they've been stored here for a really long time, and they are now digitized. And this is one of the things that we're working on making access to the BAS members in our website when we get that changed over and access and so forth. But we have these now. And going through this is just fascinating. And just reading little tidbits like that is so cool. We're actually developing a spreadsheet and hitting the highlights, the most important stuff or whatever.
I wonder who the Dr. J.P. Macaulay was mentioned in that letter. What if he's any relation to Macaulay School or anything?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Is in relation
Okay.
Yeah.
I knew Spencer.
Okay.
So anyways, this is the only reference to the Adler Planetarium and anything BAS, but I had to pull it in here. So this thing is kind of crazy. So I think of the Spitz projector. So that's built by Clarence Jones in a local hobby shop in 1951. This is kind of what I was thinking that would have been in the Adler when it first started. It was not. They had this Zeiss Mark II system.
German.
Yep. And that was the original one in there. And I don't know about you, but that thing looks scary.
It's like a War of the Worlds.
Yes. I'm thinking exactly. So it's like, so the original dome was a 69-foot dome, which is called the Sky Dome.
I lived outside of Chicago in the 70s.
So you saw
I
it.
went to the Adler when they had that there.
That would have been cool.
Yeah.
I did.
I thought they were all like that. It was like,
You
cool.
did too?
Yep.
I
saw it in the 50s. So.
I don't remember. I went in 90, sometime in the late 90s, we took a trip up there. And I know we went, but I do not remember what was in there. It was so long ago. I wish I would have, but.
They had a telescope making class when I was
Okay. I mean, it was
down the lower.
okay. It's been like the center of things. So they did eventually upgrade this. It's called now the Granger Sky Theater because Granger spent all this money to help them upgrade it to new digital and everything. So when we went there, it wasn't the historic dome. It was all modernized. They've actually added a dome in the basement. We didn't actually even go into the Sky Dome because we wanted to see not just a movie that you just hit a play. We wanted somebody to actually give a live show and talk because that's what our interest is. We're trying to learn about all these planetariums and stuff. So kind of to relate to what we're doing here. But it was still, the place was, I just wish we would have seen that creepy thing. They had some displays about it and stuff, which was kind of neat or whatever. But this is kind of neat. Like during the 30s, they had kind of another like World's Fair in Chicago. And I'll get to the one that's when I talked to about Yerkes in the late 1800s later. But this blew me away that 1 million people went to this place over a 2-year period. I mean, I guess if it's the first over here in the in the U.S. and the Western Hemisphere, it's like, that's where everybody went to, this big World's Fair. I just thought that was amazing. I can't imagine 1 million people.
Depression too.
Yeah. And that's kind of like, so just kind of looking down on it, you mostly have this dome in the center that's surrounded by all the lecture hall, little meeting rooms and display rooms and stuff. So it's not real big. Now they've added on to it. They've done all sorts of modernizing stuff, additions on the side, and they've built a basement now that wasn't there before, I guess, or at least they've added to it.
Well, it was there.
Okay. They've added to it though. They've got tunnels and it's gotten bigger.
I know they dug a tunnel from the street, I'm thinking, underneath the
I think that's what we were looking, because there's even stairs you can get. Okay.
What do you call that camera, the projector? Is it just called a projector? What is it called?
Planetarium projector.
Just a planetarium.
Yeah, I guess.
And Bobby, at that planetarium that I went down to visit you in Georgia, you have something similar to that in shape.
At first,
At
yes.
first, it's there at the side as a display, but there's one similar to that.
We had one. So this thing was in that planetarium in there until 2019, and then you went to was it? Didn't you go to Chicago to pick the one up that you?
Oh, no, it's almost to Wisconsin.
Okay, I know you drove way up in the Midwest. I was thinking that region to get a replacement for this here before it got updated to the new digital one, but it's still not as creepy as that other
To a
one.
seventh grader, it looked like something from outer space.
Yeah, I know, right?
There's still one down in Burbank, I think.
Okay.
I want to see one loose rocket.
Cool. Sorry, I'm like, so one of the neat things that I knew that they had historic displays there in museums, but we were kind of focused. I don't remember going here. It was '90s. It was almost 30 years ago. And it was much bigger than I thought. And I guess when they built this thing, Adler had purchased some old historic items to help built when he built it to kind of help bring people in, and a lot of that is still there. They are really known for like their historical stuff, which really was cool. So they had all these really old sundials. Some of the old displays are in the top left up there. I guess they had a dome in the center too, just as with the back in the day. Their astrolabes were incredible. Had a lot of them, and really old ones. Some of them like from 1250. Was the oldest one that they had. It was really well done. I wish we would have had more time. So if you think about going to Adler and think you're just going to go in and see a planetarium show and leave, it's not. It is a museum, and they have some amazing displays. So I just kind of want to hit. I'm not going to go into it, but it is really neat. You should go and expect to spend more than an hour there. We only had. I think we had like 2 hours or something, and it was not enough. But just it's really, really well done. And so, which one?
Dearborn.
The Dearborn.
Oh yeah. At one point, that was the biggest telescope, refracting telescope in the world. So I guess the Alvin Clark and Sons, they're known for their refractors. And at one point, they've built 5 different telescopes, from what I read, that have been the largest in the world. They were the people to build telescopes back in the 1800s. And their telescope displays were awesome. But the Dearborn was just kind of a really neat one. And I've got some stuff that I've delved into afterwards, learning about it, just, its history and how it shifted around and how it ended up back at the Adler and stuff. It has a really crazy history. But it's a big old telescope. It's like 18 and a half inches. But they have all sorts of other telescopes and stuff there. It was really cool to look at. This was cool. I didn't even know this thing, it unfortunately wasn't working. But before the Adler was even built, they had this in Chicago. It's called the Atwood-sphere. And you roll into the dome, and there's just holes punched in it that mimic the night sky. And so instead of projecting it up on a screen, you kind of, it's like a little roller coaster. You roll in there and you get to experience the night sky, and they roll you back out. But it wasn't working when we, as far as an active display when we got there, but we got to get in there and see it. And I tried to take some pictures of the inside of it, and they looked terrible. So you just get to see the outside of it. But that was kind of cool. I didn't even know that thing existed. So it was kind of a neat stumble upon. I didn't take a lot of pictures because we weren't there long, and we just wanted to experience the place. So I grabbed a few off their website too, except the ones on the left. But they've got all these really old books and drawings and paintings of the night sky, and of course these the domes that they have and the globes, and it's just such a great thing. One thing I did take pictures of, because we're always looking for ideas for museums, because we're really working hard on this place to try to incorporate displays and stuff as this place grows, was dark sky stuff. So it was really kind of neat. So this is what we have here to show what lighting can do. Big bright light. They had basically a lamp and you just put a shade over it and take it off. And it was amazing how dramatic that display changed. And all they did was up, you just lower, and there were a couple other ones too, but they really are, it's not just old telescopes. They're trying to inform and educate the public and stuff. I just thought that was really cool. And then lastly, we didn't get to go in there. We got to stand next to it outside, but I guess in the 77, they built a little observatory and it's still active. And in 2020, they went in there and put a 24-inch modern telescope. They do have cameras and stuff, I guess, attached to it as well, but it's mostly for viewing. It's kind of like what we have with the telescope upstairs. It's not for research. We can't even attach cameras to it and get anything really decent out of it. But just the fact that you can go and look at the planets and the moon or something from a big, large telescope, especially in a light polluted city, that's why they have a 24-inch. We've got a 20.5-inch upstairs. We're limited by what we can see, but it's still kind of neat that you can do that. And they do that, a lot of public stuff with that, which is kind of cool. So this was amazing. I didn't know what to expect. We didn't really know what the tour was they didn't go into the details. We knew that we were going to get a historic tour or whatever, but when I think about how much we've really gotten to love this place and the history of this place, and of course the love of astronomy, and I love history. It was really neat to say, wow, we get to actually go visit this sucker. And what its tumultuous past, I guess, that it's had, and it's being reinvigorated, kind of reminds me of this place. And it was just neat. So I was really excited about this. This sucker was 1897, so it's old.
Where is it?
It is in, Lake. It's Williams Bay, Wisconsin.
Where's it? Lake Geneva.
Yeah, Lake Geneva. So it's about 2 hours north. Is it about 2 hours? Took us maybe to get from Chicago up into. It's in the middle of nowhere. And when they built this, that was the point. But it's a beautiful facility. I mean, it's big, but yeah, it is beautiful. It is so intricate. It blew my mind. And we got the perfect day. We got there early and got to walk the grounds, which is open to the public year anyways. But like getting in the building, you have to have the pass and stuff like that. But we got really lucky on that. So if you recognize Hale, this guy was you want to talk about a big telescope? This guy was always involved with them. I'm reading a book about Palomar right now, which is the 200-inch telescope that they built in the 40s. So he was involved with that sucker too. His name is synonymous with big telescopes. But he was a new professor at Chicago and University of Chicago, and I guess got wind. I don't know the full story of how he got wind of it and how it really, but there were a couple of 40-inch blanks, lenses just sitting around collecting dust. And he had convinced, I guess, the university president to, let's see if we can do something with them. And I don't know how the relationship came in to where they got a hold of Charles Tyson Yerkes. He was a businessman in Chicago and almost nicknamed one of the most hated men in Chicago. He cheated. He was a scoundrel. Everybody hated him. And I guess for the most part, he was trying to help maybe his name out so he wasn't thought of such a horrible person. That, maybe if I do donate and help out and build this, they convinced him to help, fund this thing. He did. In the hopes that it would help his name, because he was just hated. He was just a horrible person, I guess. So anyway, so he got convinced to help fund this thing. And so the first thing was the telescope, of course, because they did have these 40-inch lenses that were basically useless. They just didn't know what to do with them. So the Yerkes telescope, before the observatory was built, that was, there was an exposition in 1893, a World's Fair in Chicago. and it was literally called the White City at the time. They built a city strictly just for a few months to showcase in a World's Fair. And all that was, built just for that. And they housed that telescope in there to show that thing off in 1893. And if you want to read a good book, it's called Devil in the White City by Eric Larson. And it goes into, there was also a mass murderer around at the same time, and they intertwine it together, and you find out all sorts of great details about this. And it's a good book. But what was really neat is that they got to showcase this Yerkes telescope first at this exposition. So eventually, the 50 acres that they purchased up at Lake Geneva got built to house this thing. And it's big. It's hard to just grasp how big this thing is. And it's beautiful, 50 acres. It's just gorgeous to go walk around out there. But they finally completed this thing in 1897. And so I didn't bring this with me. But in 1953, and I can't remember his name, it's Harold. He was an optometrist, I think.
Yes, Alabama.
Yeah, he had been collecting pictures of amateur-owned built telescopes all his life, I guess, or later in his life.
When Jones had converted him. Yeah.
Is that what it? Okay. So he built this. He collected them and had a scrapbook. And if you can't read this, it's basically, it got presented to the BAS in 1953 because that's when Jones died.
And we have this.
And we have this.
Okay.
And it is a lot of pictures. There's even some in there about with Jones and his sons and his own telescopes that are in there. So I didn't bring it with me. It's kind of fragile, but it is scanned and digitized.
Oh, okay.
It is going to be included in the things accessible to the BAS. It's really neat. And in there was a postcard about Yerkes. So there's a couple other ones in there. It was kind of neat. So I'm like, well, I'll just throw that in there to kind of talk about that. So, but keep an eye out. This will be one of the other things that's going to be accessible to BAS. I mean, it's part of our history, and it's really kind of neat. So it was donated in honor of Clarence T. Jones by Harold. So that's it in the dome. That is one big telescope. I mean, we've got a 20-inch telescope upstairs. It's a reflector too. So think about the size of the pieces of glass. It's a doublet. So you got one on 40 inches on both ends of this big long tube. The lenses they're 500 pounds a piece. It's 63 feet in length. So for those that care about focal ratio, it's a pretty slow telescope. It's an f/19. And what's really crazy, and so I should have had my mouse or a little pointer here. This is the base right here. It's brick, and it's 40 feet. That was actually built first before they built the dome around it. It went 40 feet into the ground, and then they built the telescope on top of that, the mount, which is here. And what's really cool too, this wooden floor is an elevator. So back in the day, instead of having ladders to get up to the eyepiece, because I mean, you're going to be changing your refractor like this, you raise the floor instead of getting up on a ladder, and it still works. They didn't do it for us, unfortunately, but it's really kind of neat. So this whole telescope and the base and everything is stationary, and the floor just goes up and down.
It's a big floor too.
It's
not a little floor.
Pretty
It is-
You can see the chairs. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
It's got an observing chair where it moves up and down.
Yeah, it's
Sit in.
pretty impressive. And when
Pictures of Bernard sitting in.
this old picture of the original hand cranks and dials and everything that went to this thing to keep it going, this is pretty impressive. So just keep that in mind because it doesn't look like that today. It looks like this. I don't think it was probably blue and white back in the day. You know, it's like our telescope wasn't orange back originally. That was like this 19.
Gray when I first saw it.
Yeah, it's like the 70s or whatever. They came in and painted that orange. But it's still a big working telescope, and it is still the biggest refractor in the world. So everybody moved to reflectors. It just, if they're efficient, they're cheaper, they gather more light.
They don't have chromatic aberration.
They don't have. Yeah, there's a lot to it. It's like even when they built this, they were starting to kind of go out of style. There was so the Lick Observatory had a 36-inch telescope, and that was basically this. They built this to beat them. That was really the big thing. That was the convincing thing also for Yerkes. We're going to build the biggest, and you're going to have your name on and it still is. This sucker's huge. But most of those dials and everything are all gone. These look like components from the 70s and 80s, but there's, I'm not sure what all they do, but this is kind of what it looks like today. We did take a picture outside. They did open it up before we went inside and got to see it from outside. So this sucker, just think about that. That's that little thing here, and that's this.
Is that a small dome on the grass in front of it?
It is. Yeah.
Tiny dome.
Yeah. They have a couple other. They had one off to the side too. So this is under the floor. So this is the floor right here. That's the elevator. This is that big brick pillar.
There's a lot of bricks in this.
That's
That's the base.
Yeah, this was neat. This was at the very end of the tour. We didn't even know we were going to get to go underneath there. I think she was kind of winging it a little bit, which was fine. It was really cool. So we got to go under there and see that, which was neat because there was a lot of stuff. It's like kind of a lot of storage. Huh?
You weren't afraid the floor was going to fall?
No.
It fell one time.
I trust engineers.
I'm glad I didn't have that.
They did. That's right. When they first built it, it collapsed.
Luckily, they were not in there when it fell.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
I forgot about that. Yeah.
Was there ever a chance when the floor went up it actually hit the telescope or not?
I guess
Or people always
You've been deliberate, Michael.
Oh, I guess so. Hopefully they were being cautious on that. I'm not sure. Yeah. So I put this, just another picture just to prove we were there. That is an unapproved picture. But like, just give you scale of this thing. This thing's 90 feet in diameter and weighs 120 tons. Okay, so you're thinking upstairs, was it 18 feet diameter, right? The dome upstairs, 16. And the opening for is 11 feet, and it's 85 feet long. This right here. So if everybody's really quiet, this is a video, and there's a reason I'm playing this. It's only like 45 seconds because they closed it for us. We took a video. Has anybody listened to the dome upstairs? I think the next state overhears it when we close it and open it up. Listen to
that one's quieter than that.
it is quiet, and that's why I wanted to do it. So shh. That is not our dome.
Oh, we probably just need to oil the wheels a little bit.
Yeah, I don't know. It definitely needs a little bit of love
They're
up
not
there.
using a 12-volt trailer winch.
Yeah, maybe not. I just, how many times we've been here and listened to that dome, and it is so loud, and this thing was just
We
like,
didn't even realize it was open until we were like, oh my gosh.
I know, it was like, what?
Same with the 100-inch too.
Oh, is it? Okay, it just surprised me. I was expecting this loud screeching, Nope. Let's see.
Oh, the mirror upstairs weighs 125 pounds, 4 inches thick.
It's still pretty heavy.
Yeah.
But nothing
I
like.
know.
Yeah. So part of the one big thing about Yerkes back in the day, and there were other places that were doing it too, but like, man, was it like the center of astrophotography. This is kind of like where it almost started. They right now have 180,000 plus photographic plates that they are slowly trying to scan from not only just from a historic standpoint, this is our sky from 100 years ago.
That could be very useful.
This is scientific data.
Yes.
And they are being incredibly meticulous in building machines and scanners specific for the scientific information that these things still hold. Because as much as it doesn't look like it changes, there's lots of changes. Brightness of stars, shifting and moving of things. This is a database.
With a name on who took that middle plate.
Yeah, I had to put Hubble in there. Yeah. And what I love too is the one on the right there is 1903. We weren't even calling galaxies back then. We didn't even know that they were outside of our own Milky Way even that 100 years ago. And Hubble helped figure that one out along with other amazing people for distances. But yeah, it was called the Andromeda Nebula back in the day, which is kind of neat. And I just picture this here. So this is sitting behind the plate here. And I'm going to get to another person here in a second, but think about you're sitting there exposing these plates for hours. So that plate isn't just like nowadays. I'm telling you, we are lazy when it comes to astrophotography. Oh man, I got to wait like 5 minutes for this picture to get taken or whatever. They would sit there for hours and guide that telescope on minuscule movements so nothing moves. I just can't imagine the patience that took. And that's kind of what that
tracking, but it wasn't exact.
Yeah, it wasn't. They had to. Yeah, exactly. So they had to just
adjust it.
Yeah, we don't have our little guide scopes.
Weight-driven clock mechanism.
Yeah, I didn't have a picture of that in there, but you're right. That's that too. I mean, it just what they did to get these pictures back then is just amazing to me. I do. I think we're lazy, and don't get me wrong. What we're able to do in our own backyard, I'm so thrilled about it. I don't know if I would be into what I'm doing if I had to do that, to be quite honest with you. But they had a couple of those plates sitting out that they had taken so that we could kind of look and see them, which was really just kind of neat. And just to point out, in that hallway in there, several of those are from Yerkes.
Really?
So, and actually most of the ones that we had originally in this building that have now unfortunately been replaced and lost were mostly from Yerkes. And Mount Wilson and stuff too, but look, we had a lot. We still have some in there. So there's the ones at the very end with the moon and a few others that aren't labeled that we think are probably from Yerkes. They were collected there and we got them when this place was built in 1936. So,
Are those like copies or are they?
they're probably copies. Yeah. I'm guessing.
Surely they are.
They've got to be, right? Didn't you say they had negatives that they kind of maybe taken them from?
Well, my ninth grade homeroom and science teacher in East Lake Junior High, believe it or not, did the printing of all these glass plates in here are black and white. So I got the skinny on them. They had the negatives. So he had the negatives. I don't know how or what they got them. I don't remember.
That's fascinating.
The glass plates are the negative.
The negatives are glass plates.
I think we got the negatives, right, and made them from those, right, is from what I understand. But
they would loan out stuff like back in those days. You could ask for them. And if you know any of the Jones people, they were pretty insistent.
probably they were. They wrote everybody. Our archive. We have documents from letter exchanges from other observatories and stuff that Jones and his sons had done over the years. We really worked hard. We're slowly building this archive. I mean, we're 100 years old. There's a lot, but we are really making good strides for what, given the small percentage that's been salvaged, most of it's been lost, which is really unfortunate.
Well, I wonder which comet that was in that plate right there.
Oh, it was written there. I didn't take a picture of it, or if I did, I didn't put it up here. I don't think that's Halley's.
Yeah.
I can't remember, but
It would have been around 1911.
Yeah.
Perhaps.
That's a great comment in 1910.
so it was kind of neat too. In the main dome, they had a little box that they would go, and when they got the plates done, they would be able to go in there and kind of look at them and do some preliminary stuff. And she didn't really go into all the details
That's
with
where
it.
they loaded it.
Oh, that's what it
You had to load
was.
the film holders.
That's what it was.
Yeah. And
I
you can
couldn't
see
for the
they got-
life of me
they got
remember.
two laying right there. They're very thick.
Thank you.
8 by 10.
I could not remember what that. I thought it was afterwards, but it was beforehand. And this was kind of neat too. Unfortunately, the sun and whatever they basically made windows out of some of the plates and stuff, which was kind of neat. Like almost like they did like these stained glass kind of things, which was you could see from outside. When we got there, we were just like, oh, and then we got to go where they showed us the actual plates was just near where these were. I thought that was like, man, that's a really good idea. That was cool. They also have a lot of bad plates. I mean, they're old, and they made artwork out of them, put them in the hallway, and they had local artists kind of do stuff. It was really neat. All right. Anybody recognize anybody famous and important in this?
At least one guy.
There's one guy.
There's probably some more.
Who are you looking at?
Well, Albert Einstein.
Albert Einstein.
Oh, that's not the important person.
Bernard.
That's Bernard.
Oh, wow.
Oh.
So I didn't say this yet, but Bernard was at the Lick Observatory. He had a horrible. Ralph had a fantastic book that he loaned me about Bernard, and I highly recommend. It was
Mortal Fire Within.
Thank you, Mortal Fire Within, and like so, he started off. He's a Tennessee guy. He started at Vanderbilt, not professionally trained at all, just has an incredible eye. Just visually, it was amazing, and kind of like built his career on comets. He discovered the fifth moon of Jupiter, all just visually looking at it, not with photographic plates, but like visually.
Wow.
But he ended up having kind of a rough time at Lick, and they convinced him when they were building the Yerkes to move. He ended his career there. He started in like in 1895, before it was even built, and he passed away in 1923 because that's how we got our name. So we named our society after him because that was the year that he passed away, because he was a Tennessee astronomer, just very famous for that. So he was there for 28 years, I guess, something like that. And just to point out, because I want to talk about it, that's Mary Colbert. That's his niece. So keep that in mind too. That's another interesting thing about this photograph. There are a lot of women in this photograph.
Yes, there are.
And they talk about that. I'll let you look that up some other time. But it was a really kind of a big deal to have this many women shown in there, because they weren't really, even though they did a lot of hard work and were really important with all this, they just weren't recognized for it. But yeah, this is a famous one with Einstein. I guess when he was touring the U.S. in 21, Yerkes was one of the top 5 places he wanted to come visit because it was such a neat place.
You notice the floors up at the maximum height.
Oh yeah, I guess you're right. I didn't even notice that. Yeah, but it's a pretty famous photograph, and it's mainly because of Einstein. But I just wanted to point out Bernard because that's who we're named after. So this guy actually, world renowned. He, mostly for photography at the end of like things. I guess he could just see things people just couldn't see. Just his eyesight was amazing. But he started taking pictures and seeing things in these plates, and he got really obsessed with the dark regions that you see in the Milky Way. And back then they didn't know what that was. And you can't see them as much through a telescope as much as you can in photographic plates. And so he really built his everything around photographic plates. He still fought to get on the big telescopes and to do all the other things, but that was his thing, was photography. So he was one of the real biggest astrophotographers back in the day. And so another important thing about this, so this is one of his pictures, and that is actually over there. There are some Bernard pictures that are in that display case over there. And this is one of them. And so this is really neat. So the 73rd BAS meeting, a letter from Mary Colbert, who's the lady I just pointed out before, who's Bernard's niece. She offered up 2 of his atlases, which I will the photographic atlas of the selected regions of the Milky Way. And he obsessed over this so much, hundreds and, thousands of pictures that he did. And he wanted to build a books over these pictures. And like he would, these guys aren't going to print these nice enough. And he was so anal retentive and so picky. he died before the darn things could get published because he just couldn't get around to it. Decades of just trying to get this thing together. And his niece helped put them together for her. And so a lot of them, so this thing's called the Bruce Telescope. A lot of the pictures that he took were not, although this was in Yerkes, he used to work, he went to Mount Wilson and took a lot of pictures out there because the sky conditions were a lot better. So a lot of them are there, not from Yerkes, but he really wanted to build this atlas. So I brought them. So Tom Atkins has been, so we were given 2 of these, and they are hard to come by. And so his niece gave a set to the BAS. And so when we're done, I'm going to open up to a couple of ones here. And, please just be careful with them, but we actually own a set, which is really kind of cool. And given to us by Bernard's niece. So one of them is all his pictures and description.
There are only 700 of those printed.
Okay. Yeah, there isn't a lot. And a lot of them are probably gone. So they're not the best shape. They've got some staining and whatever on the covers, and there's a few pages but the insides are still in really great shape. We're actually working with UTC Special Collections for a lot of the stuff that we've got to kind of help maintain some of it. Because right now everything's been kind of scattered in basements and stuff. This is his history. So I was just saying that Mary Culvert kind of, offered these up. This is what a lot of our meeting notes look like, by the way. Tough reading, but still kind of neat. But this is basically, read a letter from Miss.
That's Harold Shoddick, by the way.
Who?
Harold Shoddick, the Shoddick Center downtown.
Oh, okay.
At UTC.
Okay.
It's named after him.
Okay. Anyways, this is in the notes that's saying that she has offered up 2 of his volumes to the BAS. So that's actually in our meeting minutes, which was kind of neat. I will say that some of our secretaries don't have the best handwriting. So it's a good thing if I ever become secretary in the future, if I want to still help out, I'm going to type everything. My handwriting's horrible. But Mary Culvert, she basically came on to help him out as an assistant, and back then as the computer. She did all the math. He did a lot with comets, so calculating trajectories. That's what she was there for, and she was there for like 40 years. So she was even after Bernard left, but she was instrumental on getting those things published after he passed away, along with the director of the observatory. So it was really kind of neat. So she's at the Kenwood 12-inch that was in one of the other domes off with it. But I just think that was kind of neat, and that she's had this communication with us about those. But that's not it. So Mary didn't kind of disappear. This was from what, 1930?
37?
Well, this one was 1930. So those were donated to us in 1930. Bernard passed away in 23.
Okay.
So as Bobby pointed out, the Joneses contacted they were, if you were involved with, they were firing off letters about the stuff that they used to host here and the amount of people and the famous astronomers back in the day who used to come and give lectures here. They knew everybody. Yeah, you did. Yeah, you've been around for a while. I'll leave it at that. But what's kind of neat too is that Clarence, I guess, kept hounding her and keeping that communication with her, trying to get something of Bernard's of his to have here. And she sent him. So this is the letter that that Mary sent to Clarence. So it included 18 drawings of his sketches from Mars. There was a copy, but also some actual written letters in his authentic in his hand. And if you've been here in the last couple, in the past, we still have them. So that's his handwriting.
That's his handwriting.
And his writing and the original letter from Mary Culver. And
His
then
drawings.
a copy of his sketches.
Wow.
So these for now are being kept in here. We're working with special collections on a way to be able to get these scanned and by professionals to try to help preserve these things. But that's pretty neat, 1937, and we've still got these from her. So I'm leaving that up there. We're getting to the end here. So I just wanted to do a little bit on the architecture. So, for the rest of the tour that we did, this place was beautiful
They don't
and
build buildings like this.
intricate. And the columns as you're walking,
And everything had a story about why.
They did. So I'm only going to pull out one of them. It's kind of hard to see there, but you can see all the intricate things that are going on here, right here. So they had a sense of humor, I guess, and this is supposed to be Yerkes. You notice the horns on his head. They snuck that into the building.
I've seen
I guess
an image similar to that of Moses in Rome.
Talking about biting the hand that feeds you.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. So that's the story, is the architect snuck that into the design and put Yerkes in there with horns on that drawing. So, or in the column. I just thought that was kind of, and there was other faces in there too that had all story. I mean, there were a lot of stories. If you can go visit, it blew us away. We didn't know what to expect. So backstory real quick here. The University of Chicago owned this place. They helped, in 2019, we're done. We're going to get rid of it. We don't care. We can't afford to keep up the upkeep. Nothing's really being done here as much anymore. And it was, thought selling it to developers, whatever. University wanted to get rid of it.
Wow.
And this place has been through those ups and downs too. We didn't know if, this place would ever make it as well. Because universities, that's a lot of investment. I mean, think about the Planetarium projector they just put in there, and they're slowly putting some investment. That's a lot of money, even just the cameras, those, So fortunately, for one, it's located in a very ritzy place. Lake Geneva's got a lot of money. But it's also with the history. A foundation was developed, and they came in and bought it. And they got a lot of, they took $23 million initially to invest in this place, to help renovate it. And it was actually a registered historic building like this place is. They removed it so that they could actually do things to it. Because with that designation, you're really limited on what you can do. They found it was more of a stumbling block than anything. They got rid of it, which was kind of amazing. But they have turned this place it's beautiful, and try to keep most of they've painted things a little bit. So this is the rotunda. And this is somebody that donated a lot of money. So the rotunda is named after them, of course. These are the original mailboxes as you walk in. So all the famous astronomers, I'm sure Bernard had his own mailbox or whatever. For $5,000, you can donate and have your very own mailbox at Yerkes. So they really, huh?
I'm looking at the names.
Yeah. So it's it's pretty, but they're looking for ways to help fund that place, and why not? Some people thought that was worth the money to have a mailbox at Yerkes. When we were reading that, it was just like, oh, okay.
So can we buy Marner's mailbox?
If you can find it, you can buy it.
I know it's not there.
Huh? Oh, his on there? Yeah, I don't know. I really don't know. Yeah, I was thinking here.
That's our entire treasury.
I know, right?
We'll make it back.
It is. I know. So, anyways, this is a beautiful little library, little room that they had. We didn't get to go into all of them. Some of the original offices still kind of look as they are, but this was where we kind of first got to sit and meet. And of course, the famous photograph of Einstein and Bernard is back here. But it was just kind of a neat library. So this was off the side and I guess this room got a lot of damage. They lost a lot of books to water damage and whatever, and they've tried to salvage everything they can.
This was the little attic.
Yes.
space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they were like this kind of creepy little stairs, and you open this door and you go up into this room, and it's their, I guess, back where you could check out books and stuff if you were there and, you know, a student and so forth. And so she pulled out this one book. So I'm going to show you the.
Astronomy.
You remember these cards in back of library books?
Oh, yeah.
Anybody recognize any names?
Sagan.
Yeah. Thought that was kind of neat. Yeah, that was our like.
Harold Harris
Don't
was
cry, little.
What was that?
Harold Harris was there.
Harold Harris was there in 1954.
That's his name right there. He checked it out right above Sagan.
Yeah. But there's some of the names, if you look them up, there's some pretty good, you know, but the Sagan was really kind of neat, you know, because this was a place where intellects went for astronomy and astrophysics. And that was just neat that she got to, and she even said that she just stumbled upon that book by accident when she was going through things there. Yeah. So, so one thing I wanted to end with this rest of the tour, this is the front of the building. So we actually came around the backside and came in the other way just to give you another view. If you want a QR code, I can give you this too. All those glass plates they are building that repository. They're online through the University of Chicago, and a lot of them have been scanned and accessible to the public. There are documents and logbooks, and it's a rabbit hole of stuff. So I put that up there. If you can Google it too and find it, but all that's online now. They're trying to make that, you know, available to the public. They got students going in there and doing all sorts of, you know, student assistants and stuff for it and whatever. So, thought I would. And then we finally did actually make it to the music festival. So it was up in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, called Blue Ox. So it's a big like bluegrass kind of.
You had to dress warmly for it. Was it cool up there?
It was cool up there. This is the time, this was in June, where it was like, 100 degrees down here, and it was like 60s up there. It was awesome. It was the perfect time to take a vacation up there. So
See how awesome it is when you spend a winter up there.
now that's a good point. Yeah, that's a lot different. So
By this time of year,
You'd be
in
blown
northern
away.
Wisconsin, there's
Yeah.
snow on the ground that won't go away until late April.
did you live up there? Is that
My folks are from Oshkosh.
okay?
That's where I always went to meet grandparents.
We've been up there twice during the summer, and it's been
I
perfect.
escaped at 3 months old.
So
I
yeah.
was born in Madison.
I worked there in November.
Anyways, that's all I had. I just
fabulous.
thank
That's fabulous.
you. I guess any questions about you all online? But I can. I mean, I just it was a fantastic visit. We didn't know what to expect, and
You had a great year.
felt we got lucky to get in there, the timing and everything. It was just really cool.
See M13 to a 46 times.
Now that would be cool. Yeah, we did. You can actually schedule nights to look through it if you live up there.
Really?
Yeah,
Their social media, they're adding more and more events.
they are. Yeah.
Like Star Party nights. They're opening more. A lot of them are high ticket. Like, I mean, they got to get all that money back. I mean, the renovations are insane. But you know, and it shows in some of the event prices to go out
Yeah.
and spend a night looking at the stars or through the telescope.
And you book
It's
it,
a
and
high
you're
ticket.
lucky, ahead of time, and you just have to hit it with the good evening too. You buy tickets for a Saturday a month later. If it's bad skies, you don't get your money back. So, I think there's some. I don't know what the detail. Maybe a
Their
rescheduling
social
of it.
media
Like
is getting
it
more
is
and more
really-
active. And it's
we kind of got in on the
look at.
beginning of this whole. It was really, but yeah, it's like pretty amazing. But anyways, if you can make it up there, it was just one of those. I just, hearing about the history of this place over the years and just the tie into and the fact that they opened it. It was cool. Yeah, Adler was neat too, but Yerkes just, yeah, it was neat.
Next thing is Mount Lucy.
Yeah, that's on the list. So is Lick Observatory.
History and stuff, and they're doing the same thing. You can get time on the 60-inch telescope at Mars
Okay.
as a group. You go as a group, and it costs you a little money, $1,500 or something.
15
wait,
people, that's
yeah.
$100 a piece.
But you can come see the Clarence T. Jones telescope for free.
Yeah. Look through it.
Yeah, and look through it. Exactly.
We're missing an opportunity here, I know.
Yeah. Anyways, well, I just thought it was a neat thing to share.
Well, this
So
was great.
I might go look at this book.
yeah, let me get a few things out here. So Ralph said you're welcome to look